لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعليمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها. I'd like to begin by congratulating you all tonight on the birth anniversary of perhaps one of the greatest human beings in the history of the religion, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Imam Ali was born on the 13th of Rajab, 22 years before Hijrah. As we know, his father was known as Abu Talib and his mother was Fatima bint Asad. His life is quite clear as to what type of man he truly was. Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, our brothers, they view Imam Ali as the fourth Khalifa and a very close and great companion of the Prophet. Although we may have differing opinions on the Imam, they still recognize him as a great individual. Imam, as I mentioned, his life was blessed with many blessings and virtues. Of course, we cannot mention every blessing of his tonight. It would be impossible for me to enumerate blessings of Ali alayhi salam, as the very famous saying says that if the wood, all the wood in the world became ink, the seeds became ink and the wood became pens, and all the ins and the jinns, they became scribes, you'd still not be able to enumerate the merits of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So the best I do to my justice to Ali, I can never do justice to the man. For Ali is justice personified. With the little time that I have, and that's 63 years of Imam Ali's life, we're going to try to dive deep into just a fragment of his life. Just a short moment of his life and what type of lesson we can learn from this short fragment of his life. Because Ali, as we know, is a colossal titan and massive mountain of knowledge that I cannot dissect in just a 20-30 minute lecture. One of his most astonishing lessons in the life of Ali is his discussion with Kumail, one of his famous companions, about knowledge. Knowledge, as we know, is a fundamental skill that every single human being should look after in life. Did the Prophet not say, "Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha"? I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gates. And whoever wants to enter the city must enter through its gates. Imam himself would say that Rasulullah opened 1,000 doors of knowledge to me, and each door opened another 1,000 doors of possibilities. So the training that Imam Ali ibn Talib alayhi salam goes through is quite immeasurable compared to the other companions. And it famously says, أَوَتَحْسَبَ عَنْكَ جُرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ أَنْتَ وَالْعَالَمَ الْأَكْبَرُ. You presume, O human being, that you are a small entity, but engulfed in you is in the entire universe, only if you reflect. We human beings tend to think that we're just a small entity in this entire universe. In reality, of course, that itself requires a dissection for another topic, but when we look at it, we are just far greater than what we seem. We underestimate ourselves. Now, a question for everyone here. I want to ask you a question and I want to know where you stand. If I was to ask you, would you prefer to have knowledge of the seen, knowledge of the unseen, knowledge of theology, knowledge of spirituality, knowledge of Islamic ethics, knowledge of Islamic law, or a brand new Lambo and a Ferrari in front of your house? Which one did you choose? That's a very, very good question we should ask ourselves. Which brings you more pleasure? Is it the seerah of Rasulullah, the story of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt and the Prophets of God? Or is it the latest Jordans that came out on the market? I remember a guy I was having a discussion the other day with, he had a pair of TMs that was purple color. And he said, bro, these TMs go for 300 right now, but because they're out of market, they're so valuable, they're $800 now. I'm not going to give them away to anyone. He said, they're off market, I'm not going to give it. So my question to you is, what do you find more pleasurable? Is it knowledge or is it wealth? And this is a question every single human being asks in their life. The pursuit of knowledge and the working hard towards gaining wealth. Which should I look towards? Which should I work hard for? What's better for me? Can I have both of them in my life? What's more beneficial for me? And so this discussion between Kumayl bin Ziyad, Imam Ali alayhi salam, in Sermon 147, Nahj al-Balagha, mentions this and goes deep into this in beautiful detail. Sermon 147 goes as follows. Kumayl bin Ziyad, as we know, is a companion of Imam Ali. The dua that we read every Thursday night is attributed to Kumayl bin Ziyad. We read dua Kumayl every Thursday night, which is attributed to Kumayl bin Ziyad. Kumayl bin Ziyad was one of the very close companions of Imam, to which he would share the secrets of this world with. Not many people had the honor of getting secrets from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. You had your Salmans, you had your Abu Zar, you had your Miqdad, you had your Ammar, maybe you had your Malik al-Ashtars and your Kumayls. There weren't many few that were known as Sahib al-Sir, the keeper of the secrets of the world. So in this discussion, Kumayl bin Ziyad talks beautifully about knowledge and wealth. You know what he says? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, peace be upon him, took hold of my hand and took me to the maqbara, to the graveyard. When he passed through the graveyard and we had left from the city, he breathed a deep sigh. So he takes Kumayl's hand, takes him out of the city and into the maqbara, the graveyard. Why the maqbara? Why the graveyard, Ya Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen? Because the graveyard is one of the most beautiful environments for you to reflect. How many of you, when you go to a graveyard, feel completely different? You go to a graveyard and you start to think about life. There's a bunch of graves there. Who knows, in a few years I might be there. I might be joining these guys. These guys might be my neighbors in a few years, who knows? This work that I have, these cars that I have, this house that I live in, the mortgage that I'm paying, is it worth it? I go 9-to-5 jobs and I lose so much family time with my kids and my wife and my family and my sisters and my brothers over a 9-to-5 job for probably an employee who doesn't really care about you. Is it worth it? So when you go to a graveyard, you get thoughts like this because it's a moment of reflection, an environment of reflection, which is why Imam Ali takes Kumayl to the graveyard, for him to reflect. He takes him and he breathes a deep sigh. When he breathes a deep sigh, he says, Ya Kumayl, these hearts are like containers. The best of them is that which preserves its contents. So preserve what I'm about to say to you. In other words, Imam is saying, Oh Kumayl, your heart is like a container. Now, by heart, he doesn't mean your physical heart. Because when we say the disease of the heart is envy, it doesn't mean your physical heart, the disease of it is envy. There's no such thing as envy as a pathological disease. The heart in this context refers to your soul, your spirit. If you go to a pharmacist and he says, excuse me, I'm suffering from an illness, and he says, what's your illness? I'm envious of people. I need a medication for it. The pharmacist will look at you and says, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a illness for envy. So envy is a disease of your soul, not a physical disease. It's not your arteries that are causing your aortas. It's causing envy. So Imam refers to this as your heart, your soul. The best of that which preserves its contents. He says, Oh Kumayl, people are of 3 types. Now I want you to question yourself which of these 3 types you are. The first of those people is known as the scholar and the divine, or alim rabbani. The second is the one who is a seeker of knowledge and is on its way to deliverance. The third is known as the common rot, who runs after every corner and bends to the direction of every wind. Meaning what? When you have a flower and the wind pushes it this way, it goes that way. When the wind pushes it that way, it goes that way. So let's have a quick analogy as to what these are and who they are. And I want you to ask yourself where you fit in this. The very first one is the scholar and the divine. And there is no greater scholar and divine like Muhammad and Al-Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So a scholar and a divine is like imams and the prophets, and you have your marji'as who have studied a certain level where they can derive jurisprudential laws, like laws. When we have taqleed from a scholar, these are scholars and divine people. The second is the seeker of knowledge, meaning this person is trying to seek knowledge, to gain a better understanding of reality. Whether that's through Islamic ethics, whether that's university studies, whether that's just understanding his environment and the reality around him. He's a seeker of knowledge and he's trying. And the last one is the common rot that goes with every direction. So wherever the flock of sheep goes, he goes. He doesn't care what people think of him. He doesn't care about tomorrow. He's got the whole idea of YOLO, YOLO, you only live once. So I want you to question yourself, which one of these three are you in? Ya Kumail, Imam further goes on, it says, Ya Kumail, al-ilm khayrun min al-mal. Oh Kumail, knowledge is better than wealth. He makes it clear from the very start. Knowledge is better than wealth. Al-ilm khayrun min al-mal. Why? Oh Kumail, knowledge is better than wealth. Knowledge guards you, whilst you have to guard wealth. Now, I want you to understand how deep this is. Knowledge guards you, whilst you have to guard wealth. When you have wealth, you're constantly thinking as to where to secure your wealth. You've got a bag of money and you want to keep it in your pocket. That pocket has zips so someone doesn't mug you in the middle of the street. Or you have jewelry, when you're walking, you cover it behind your coat so nobody points a gun at you and says, look, take out your watches, I'm gonna rob you. Or sometimes you go even further, a bit more diplomatically, and you go to the bank. You transfer the money in the bank and you put it there because you think it's safer there. But at the same time, at the back of your mind, you still have that worry and anxiety. What if my bank account gets hacked and somebody has access to that money of mine? Either way, you're constantly stressing. So, knowledge guards you whilst you have to guard wealth. How does knowledge guard you? When you're about to sin, an ayah pops into your head. Let's say, for example, you want to go to the pub and you have a drink with your friends. I don't know if it's a common norm or anything. Let's say you go to the pub and you want to chuck down one, and then the ayah comes into your head, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسَرِ, and they ask you about alcohol and gambling. And then that acts as a reminder, and you say, Ya Allah, thank you for the reminder. Maybe this isn't the right thing to do. So it saves you from sin. It saves you from devious acts. That's how knowledge guards you. Oh Kumail, wealth decreases by spending, whilst knowledge multiplies by spending. Wow, what a beautiful line by Imam Ali. Wealth decreases by spending, whilst knowledge increases by spending. How? When you go and you buy a house, let's say you buy a car from a showroom. You bought it brand new, 0 kilometers, no finance, nothing. It's worth $38,000, let's say. The moment you drive it out of the showroom, it's lost a third of its value. Let's say it was 38. I don't know, you do the math however much a third is. It's not 38,000 anymore. You only drove 2 to 3 kilometers out of that showroom, but the depreciation value went so down. So wealth decreases as you spend. And the value of that car is not 38,000 anymore. Whereas wealth increases when you spend it. Why? When you sit down with someone, you teach someone, it multiplies. 2 minds have that knowledge now. When you go to study at a course, you're gaining more knowledge. It's multiplying every time. This is the wisdom of Ali ibn Abi Talib that we have neglected so much in our lives. Oh Kumail, knowledge is the belief which is acted upon. With it, man acquires obedience in his life and a good name after his death. Knowledge is the ruler while wealth is ruled upon. Knowledge is the belief which is acted upon. Meaning what? Meaning I know, or I have my knowledge, where I go into the streets, I look at the lights, the light is red, Okay, my knowledge of the light being red, I don't go. Why? Because if I go, another car's going to hit me. My knowledge of traffic law and road law is that I put my seatbelt on in the car before I drive because it decreases the risk of me being in an accident. This is all knowledge which is acted upon. My knowledge of my limbs and my legs every time I walk, it has to be a certain angle, and my weight on my upper body has to be a certain angle so that I don't lose balance when I'm walking. This is all knowledge that is acted upon. O Kumail, those who amass wealth are dead even though they may be alive. Whilst this line is beautiful. Whilst those who die, or those who are endowed with knowledge, will remain as long as the world lives. Many words, meaning their bodies may not be there, but their figures exist in the heart. The person who is wealthy but who is dead, what does that mean? The guy's got a mansion, the guy's got a Ferrari, he's got problems with his wife, he's probably divorced her, he's got an issue with his brother over a business deal that went wrong. The guy's completely lonely. He's got a Ferrari, but nowhere to share that happiness with. He's gotten into depression. Whereas those who amass knowledge live until the end of the world. When you look at the greatest minds in history, let's look at the Western world, the greatest minds in history, how much people thank them. You've got your Albert Einstein, you've got your Isaac Newton's theory of relativity, law of gravity. You have, for example, in the field of psychology, you have Immanuel Kant and so on and so forth. In the Islamic world, you have the greatest ones, the prophets and the Al-Muhammad. These are all greatest minds whose legacy lives on forever. That's what Imam is trying to emphasize. That knowledge, when you have knowledge, when you seek knowledge, you are immortal. You live until the end of time. Yazid was the wealthiest man in his time. Let's look at Karbala right now. Yazid was the wealthiest man in his time. Where's Yazid now? But Hussein bin Ali, the knowledge and the legacy that leaves behind is in the heart of every lover and every believer, is it not? Where's Yazid's palace right now? And where's Hussein's palace? That's the difference between knowledge and wealth. Knowledge leaves much for our greatest students and legacies for. And one of the greatest legacies left by Muhammad and Muhammad was Ja'far as-Sadiq, to which we get our jurisprudential knowledge from, our laws and mazhab from. When we say we are Ja'fari, we follow Imam as-Sadiq in fiqh. Imam as-Sadiq was a colossal mountain of knowledge. We completely underestimate Ja'far as-Sadiq. Ja'far as-Sadiq used to have over 4,000 students in his university. And I'll name you a few, one of the greatest scholars, Abu Hanifa. I'm sure many of you have heard Imam Abu Hanifa. A quarter of the Sunni world follow Imam Abu Hanifa in Sunni fiqh. Abu Hanifa was a student of Imam as-Sadiq, but nobody tells you that. Abu Hanifa, his name was Nu'man. Abu Hanifa is just a title. He would say, لولا السنتان فحلك النعمان, were it not for the 2 years under Ja'far as-Sadiq that I studied under, Nu'man would have been perished. So he was grateful for the 2 years he spent under Ja'far as-Sadiq with so much knowledge being given to him. Another one was Malik ibn Anas. A quarter of the Sunni world take their fiqh ruling from Imam Malik. When you say you're a Maliki Muslim or a Maliki Sunni, you take your fiqh rulings from Malik ibn Anas. Malik ibn Anas was a student of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, but they don't tell you that. You had Sufyan al-Thawri, you had, for example, Abu Hamza al-Somali, and you had one of the greatest ones known as Jabir bin Hayyan. Jabir bin Hayyan, of course, the West tried to monopolize him. They tried to take credit for Jabir bin Hayyan. Jabir bin Hayyan, when we look at Jabir, he's known as Jiba in the Western world. Jiba. Jabir bin Hayyan was known as the father of modern chemistry in the Islamic world. His contribution in the field of science and chemistry was so much. When he looked at crystallization and distillation and sulfur acid and chemistry and components, there was so much discoveries. But nobody tells you his teacher was Ja'far as-Sadiq. Ja'far as-Sadiq's legacy lives on, which is why Imam Ali in this discussion says to Kumail, knowledge is better than wealth. And at the end, Imam looks at Kumail and says, oh Kumail, look over here. And he points towards his chest. He says, here is a heap of knowledge. Pointing towards his chest. He says, here is a heap of knowledge. And I wish someone was there who could bear it. So those who I gave it to, they did not use it for the right choices. One who could not be trusted. The other used it for worldly gains. The other used it to make himself famous in front of everyone. The other used it to get himself power. So nobody used the knowledge that I gave them to help him get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, we are the ones who seek knowledge, become better human beings, and truly follow the legacy of Imam Ali. I'd like to conclude with a short poem in honor of Imam Ali on this grateful night. In the sands of Arabia, where the sun kisses the sky, a noble soul emerged with a gleam in his eye. Imam Ali, a name that echoes through time, a symphony of virtues, a celestial rhyme, born in the sanctity of the Ka'ba's shadow, a lion-hearted soul, in wisdom did he grow. From a cradle of purity to a warrior's might, his journey unfolded, faith in heaven's light. In the fields of Badr, his courage unfurled, a valiant defender of Islam in the tumult of the world. With the Prophet's love, a bond pure and deep, his loyalty to Allah, a covenant to keep. Beside Fatima, a love story unfolds. In their sacred union, virtues manifold. Hassan and Hussein, the fruits of their love, in their name, echoes of blessings from above. Nahjul Balagha, a garden of profound thought. Imam Ali's words, a treasure being sought. In eloquence and wisdom, his pen would dance, a poetic symphony, a divine romance. On the battlefield, a lion in his might, yet in prayer's serenity, his soul took flight. A warrior for justice, against tyranny he'd stand, his sword an emblem in the name of God's command. And lastly, in Kufa's nights, with Humayl as his kin, in knowledge's embrace, a journey would begin. Knowledge is the belief which is acted upon, he proclaimed, a beacon for seekers in wisdom's flame. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.